Russian President Vladimir Putin has been hosting Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Sochi. Why is Turkey so keen on schmoozing up to Russia? And conversely, what's on Putin's agenda with regards to Turkey? And in the second part of our series, The Belt and Road's Heartbeats, we'll be taking a look at what effects in the medical field across Eurasia the Belt and Road Initiative could bring. Welcome to The Point. I'm Lishin. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday hosts his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan for bilateral talks in the Black Sea resort of Sochi. The leaders have met for a record 5 times since last July as part of rapprochement efforts after, quote, Turkey stabbed Russia in the back, as Putin put it, by shooting down a Russian bomber over Syria. Though Russia has since partially lifted its economic sanctions on Turkey, their relationship has still not fully recovered. It is believed further loosening embargoes and strengthening economic ties are topping the agenda. Other hot issues include ceasefire talks in Syria. So what bargain will Erdogan strike with Putin? And Erdogan's month-long travels will also cover Washington and Brussels. But can Erdogan really juggle NATO and Russia? Joining the discussion today are Ferit Temur from Ankara, Turkey, a specialist in Russian and Eurasian affairs, Lilith Gevorgian from London, a senior economist at the consulting firm Information Handling Service, or IHS Markit, and from Van, Turkey, Professor Hussein Barji, a political analyst from Middle East Technical University. Welcome to all 3 of you. Professor Barji, let me start with you. Now, the US has deployed special forces along the Syrian border in a bid to deter Turkey from carrying out further attacks against America's Kurdish allies. Now, Erdogan has said he would continue fighting against what he describes as terrorists. Will this development figure in the latest meeting between Putin and Erdogan and bring the 2 countries closer?
Indeed, this will bring 2 countries together because Turkey is more and more distancing herself from the American position, that the Americans are helping to the groups what Turkey considers as terrorist organizations, whereas Turkey, together with Russia and Iran in Astana, tries to bring peace to Syria, covering all these, of course, organizations friendly to Russia and Turkey and Iran. From this perspective, the Turkish-Russian relations in recent months increasingly getting closer, and today's meeting is the summit, if you want, of all those developments, and the Turkish-Russian rapprochement will continue as far as I can see from today's meeting and developments and talks. And I think Putin knows exactly how much he needs Turkey for a stable Syria, and he knows that Turkey's position with Russia, with America, with NATO and with the European Union at the moment is not so good, and it tries, of course, to get Turkey on his side. Most probably it will be successful in the coming days.
Lilith Gevorgian, now Turkey, together with Russia and Iran, as we heard, brokered a ceasefire in Syria during their trilateral meetings in Astana, Kazakhstan. However, the latest we are hearing about the meeting is that the Syrian rebels has reportedly just announced that they will suspend participation in the Astana peace talks. What could Turkey and Russia do at this moment to push forward the settlement?
Well, I think both countries believe that they are regional powers who have their vested interest in this conflict, and I think both leaders are going to discuss exactly how much power they can exercise on the sides of this conflict. I'm not sure whether the Turkish side can actually convince the the Syrians to take part in these negotiations if they've decided to suspend their participation. But sort of looking at the wider issue, both Russia and Turkey, and particularly Russia, wants to make a big success out of Astana talks, just to show that Moscow is a global power, that it has to be reckoned with, that the West has been wrong in sidelining Russia in recent years, that Moscow can bring peace to this troubled region. And in this context, Turkey, of course, has an important role to play, not least because when it comes to Syrian conflict, effectively, they're on opposite sides of this conflict rather than on the same side, with Turkey seeing Assad as a massive problem, a roadblock to the final peace settlement of the Syrian conflict, was Russia believing that he's the only sort of legitimate leader in the country, and together with Iran, of course, they're supporting the Assad regime.
Now, Farid Temur, after failing to secure missile systems both from China and the United States, Turkey has turned to Russia to buy its S-400 surface-to-air missile system, and that is expected to be discussed during this summit. Will Moscow ultimately sell such a sophisticated system to Turkey, which is a NATO member, in your eyes?
Yes. Well, in spite of the fact that parties made statements indicating that these issues reached a final stage, I personally think it's quite difficult to get results from this negotiation process because of Turkey's NATO membership. As you can remember, NATO member Turkey in 2015 cancelled a $3.4 billion tender for a long-range missiles defense system that had been provisionally awarded to China. To tell openly, it would be in the interest of Turkey to cooperate with the non-Western countries in the field of defense industry. But if we take into account the fact that Turkey is still a country under the influence of the Western powers in the political, economic, and security fields, it may be estimated that further progress on this issue with Russia is so unlikely. Nevertheless, the process itself is important, independent from the result itself. Because in this way, on the one hand, Russia is carrying out psychological warfare to weaken the unity spirit against the NATO by continuing negotiations with a bloc member. On the other, Turkey sends a message to its Western partners that she has an alternative partnership opportunity over than the West.
Professor Baji, now as we have heard, Turkey has been in a standoff with its NATO allies recently. Erdogan now also has a new range of far-reaching powers available to him as Turkish president in the wake of his successful referendum on changing to a presidential system. What effect do you think this is going to have on Turkey's relationship with Russia?
I think Turkey is, first of all, partner of NATO, member of NATO and partner of European Union. And Turkey is now still in the Western infrastructure and institutional structure. So it is very difficult to leave for Turkey out of these structures. Therefore, Tayyip Erdogan considers at the moment Russia as an alternative, also in military terms, to get S-400s defense systems, because this is Turkey's threat perception. But the problem is this type of systems cannot be deployed and used if it is not in compatible situation with NATO structures. I think I do expect probably there will be another case like in Chinese case, 2015. Turkey was dealing with China to get missile systems, but then cancelled it, and it was another big problem between Turkey and China. Now, with Russia, it can happen the same way. I don't know how Putin and Tayyip Erdogan at the moment are really sincere about this delivering the system and buying this system. In the final analysis, both countries definitely need cooperation, but not on this very, I would say, crucial technology which NATO dominates in Turkey, and Turkey is bound to get these NATO structures. I think the negotiations will go on. Turkey will use it as a tool in her negotiations with Europe and with America, but whether at the end Russians would deliver this weapon is an open question. I do not expect in the foreseeable future.
Lilith Gevorgian, now let's talk very briefly about a very important energy cooperation between Turkey and Russia. Now, the gas pipeline called Turk Stream, which was launched at the end of 2014. Now, after an initial period of slow progress, the project gained momentum after the two leaders met in August last year. This is an important project to bring Russian gas eventually to Europe via the Black Sea by bypassing Ukraine and Moldova. How will the meeting affect the progress of this project, Lilith?
I think when it comes to commercial relations between these two countries, energy is one of the key aspects, and sort of the two leaders always mention sort of successful energy partnership between the two countries. It is worth mentioning that Turkey relies on Russian energy imports heavily. Over 50% of energy imports come from Russia, and there are already Russian pipelines that go through Turkey. Turk Stream will be another success story. However, besides the political issues, there are also commercial considerations regarding the price or the cost of this very large infrastructure project, considering the changes in the energy market, considering the protracted recovery of crude oil prices, which of course sets the tone for the gas pricings and so forth. And also we shouldn't really forget that European Union still remains quite wary about increasing its dependence on Russian gas. So these are the issues that the two leaders will also perhaps talk about, but in terms of the headline news, we're almost sure to see that both Putin and Erdogan will hail their energy cooperation. But I just have to also emphasize that the project hasn't really made as much progress as they would have, as the both leaders would have liked. And again, it's the commercial considerations, it's the geopolitical considerations, security considerations when it comes to building this pipeline. Russia is, when it comes to diversifying its export routes, Russia has been making progress in the north, in fact, investing in Nord Stream that will supply gas to northern Europe, which at the moment, perhaps from Russian perspective, is much more attractive. But as you mentioned, Turkey offers an attractive alternative to Ukraine for Russia, as Russia is trying to avoid that transit route.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. That has been Lilith Gevorgian joining us from London, Ferit Temur joining us from Ankara, and Professor Hüseyin Bağcı joining us from Van, Turkey. And here is my take of this story. As we've just heard, the intensification of Russia-Turkey military cooperation is taking place against the background of Ankara's worsening relationship with its NATO allies. Now, Turkey's officials have complained about NATO's unwillingness to cooperate with Turkey, while NATO's annual report says Turkey only took part in 4 of the 18 key NATO exercises held last year. Turkey is a major Eurasian power, and its integration into the Eurasian system system acquires greater significance as relations with EU and many NATO member states worsen. This will likely make Ankara's position with regard to the West stronger, and its multidimensional foreign policy is likely to strengthen Turkey's standing in the world. Vladimir Putin congratulated Erdogan on winning the referendum on constitutional amendments that gave him greater powers, but it may also give a new lease of life to the process of Russia-Turkey cooperation. All told, there is every reason to expect the summit between the two leaders to be some kind of a landmark event in the history of their bilateral relations.
My name is Bayan Konirbayev. I'm from the ninth biggest country in the world, from the heart of Central Asia, from Almaty, the most beautiful city all over the world. I have been working in healthcare industry for more than 9 years. I have very good experience working in one of the biggest company in China, dealing with medical equipment and working now in IT healthcare business. Belt and Road Initiative for Central Asia is going to be a very good platform to communicate, to develop new high technology business, especially in the healthcare industry. Welcome to The Point with Blue Team.
What made you come to China to begin with?
In the beginning, I was trying to find some university where I can finish my master's degree. At that time, I had an opportunity to go to United States or go to China. So I used an opportunity to go to China because I saw that actually the trend of China was developing very fast. And it was a very good opportunity to develop myself. And anyway, it's like we still need to speak Chinese language, right? Through that kind of platforms, through the platform of studying Chinese, I learned something regarding Chinese culture, the way to do business, the way to talk with people, the way to treat people. So I think it was very important. I never regret about it.
From where you come from, Almaty, in Central Asia, very close to China in a historic sense as well, in a geographic sense as well. Was it interesting for you still to come and see China for your own eyes?
We will look in Central Asia region, we'll be able to find actually that before China and Central Asia was very close together. Because at that time it was like a Silk Way.
So we had a very strong connection back then, we all know that, and however, because of the discovery of the sea route linking America with Asia through different routes, the importance of the Silk Road kind of diminished together with the development of this part of the world. What kind of opportunities are we seeing now along this part of the world?
Long history before, Silk Way project was like a win-win cooperation, and if we are talking about Belt and Road Initiative, now we can say that actually it has the same position for win-win cooperation to all of us, not even China, not even Central Asian countries, but for all the road like India, Pakistan, and even European countries. So we are talking about cultural exchange, not between China and Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan or Uzbekistan, but even Kazakhstan can have its own way to go to India and Pakistan thanks to Belt and Road Initiative.
You have constantly been talking about cultural exchanges, interestingly, but most of the time when we talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, we're talking about building roads, building highways, doing trade. Why is that?
Belt and Road is not just the roads, it's not just the highways, it's not just railways, it's not even just telecommunication, it's something which will be able to change everything, because that kind of platform, it helps us to communicate with each other. And it's a very sensitive question when we're talking about healthcare, because all of us are different, but as far as we are different, we still have the same problems with healthcare. So it's very important to focus on this communication, to promote it, and to promote the high technology points to develop these healthcare issues.
Have you seen any changes in either policy or in financing or in whichever aspect that have affected your business? As you have said, this kind of platform is super important for your industry, or are you still waiting to see real changes coming through?
Central Asia region, before it's still a very important region in the world, but before it was not paid too much attention for it. And thanks to Belt and Road Initiative, we can find that Central Asia and especially Kazakhstan is going to be the first step. So the first basement of Belt and Road Initiative is going through Kazakhstan. So a lot of people from China, a lot of businessmen from China, from Southeast Asia, from South Asia, from Europe, they started to focus on Central Asia. When they started to focus on the projects and business opportunities, which kind of products will be able to bring. So Europeans, South Asia, and a lot of people and businessmen from China, they started to invest money in it. And of course, healthcare industry is one of the most important. So I really can feel the difference, how it was and how it become now. And I still feel that in 3 or 4 years, it will be changing like 90 degrees. It will be like totally different and much better.
Wow. Why you are saying that? Do you have, I mean, not just in the kind of strong will by the Chinese government to promote this initiative, but do you also have the same feeling that this initiative will be even better received by countries around the world?
If we are talking about promotion of this initiative, we need to understand that actually there's still a lot of work which should be done. Today, a lot of people already know what kind of project it is, what kind of initiative it is. A lot of people can feel the difference, how it was and how it became and how it will be in the future. If we are talking about Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, about these 5 countries in Central Asia with Tajikistan and Turkmenistan, we can say that actually all of these countries can see that kind of difference. And maybe for a lot of people, it's still Belt and Road Initiative is just a highways. But a lot of people started to understand that actually with that kind of highways, with that kind of platform, a lot of business is coming. And a lot of opportunities is coming. And a lot of development is coming as well.
I understand you also do business in other countries along this Eurasian route, let's say. What other opportunities or interest points you can share with us when you are doing this business?
I was doing the sales, like project sales, for post-Soviet Union countries, including Caucasian region, including Southeast Asia, including East Asia countries, and even Ethiopia, like some African countries. I was in Georgia, in Tbilisi. It was a healthcare week of Georgia at that time, and I heard about a big project in Azerbaijan. And actually, they said that that project already finished. There was like the biggest hospital in Baku. So I just left from Georgia to Azerbaijan, tried to find something about this project, and I came there at 8 o'clock. Before it was not planned, actually. It was not under the planning. Mm-hmm. So I came at 8 o'clock in the morning. I contacted with my distributor, and we decided to meet with the chief of this hospital. So we met, and we started to talk about the project, and we had only 15 minutes to talk. And actually, we've been talking about 5 or 6 minutes about the project. And then we spent about 4 hours talking about the history of this place. Like I told them all the story from China, how it was before, from Central Asia, and how we've been communicating with each other. Yeah. So like Caspian region, like Central Asia, China, and Europe.
So you spent 4 hours in the end. Did you get the contract?
We get the contract. Yeah, we got the contract.
So what does that say about the countries that China wants to invite on board this initiative? There must be a historic or cultural relationship that we can build on. How do you look at the potential possibility, the potential, let's say, prospect of this initiative, if it is well communicated?
At first, it's like if we are going to build a very good business, very good platform on this Belt and Road Initiative, we need to understand that we need to be very flexible. We need to be very flexible, and we need to learn other cultures' advantages. Because we need to understand actually, like China has more than 5,000 years of history, no doubt. But if you look at Iran, India, Caucasian countries, even Central Asia, all of them has a lot of influence of the cultural background. They have their own history. They have their own possibilities to develop themselves. But it's very important to understand that if we are going to create a platform, we need to listen to each other. We need to talk with each other. We need to communicate and understand the common approaches. So it's very important. And Belt and Road Initiative, it creates a kind of platform. So for example, if I'm in Kazakhstan, I can use a kind of highway or railway, just go to Southeast Asia or to South India, just talk to the businessmen, just talk to the people, or just go to China, and it's coming very, very convenient. If it's very convenient, it means that business processes is going to be very quick. Mm-hmm. So of course it will have an influence on myself, it will have an influence on the person with whom I'm talking with, and it will have an influence on the society which surrounds us.
Yeah. So if the Belt and Road, if the infrastructure connectivity is the bone of this giant person in Asia, then the flesh might be the cultural and historic bond we have already, and which need to be developed.
First, we have a skeleton. We have bones, and actually, bones don't have any brain. So brain is something else, but you still need to have bones to have that brain, right? For me, Belt and Road Initiative is something like a very good platform, and using that kind of platform, we can create a very good brain.
The Belt and Road Initiative gave me a spectacular new opportunity.
Serge Platkovsky is a Russian who grew up in China. He calls himself one of the benefactors of Belt and Road Initiative, as it connects him back with his native country. How has the initiative changed Serge's life? How has Serge connected the place he was raised in with his motherland through the Belt and Road? Join me tomorrow to find out on The Point in our special series, The Belt and Road's Heartbeats. That's all for this edition of The Point with me, Li Xin. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the CGTN Live application to watch our show on your mobile devices. For previous shows, go to the CGTN channel of YouTube. Click on the playlist and look for The Point with Li Xin. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow at the same time.